You are now entering the horror sanctum.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast, and Merry Christmas. We said we weren't going to give you a traditional episode this week because Christmas is on a Monday, and we meant that. Hopefully you've already listened to our first Christmas special we had, which we dropped yesterday on Christmas Eve, where we just talked about our favorite horror Christmas flicks and open presents from one another with Vito as Santa Claus. We had a lot of fun with that one. But when we were doing that episode and leading up to it, we were talking to Kelan, and we realized that he has never seen any of the Black Christmas movies, which is one of our go-tos every year. If you're not familiar with Black Christmas 1974, Black Christmas 2006, Black Christmas 2019. So they've made three of these films. Our buddy has never seen any of them. So we thought it would be fun. I'm sure there's a term for it. It's kind of like if you saw Deep Impact before you saw Armageddon, you probably liked Deep Impact more. I was an Armageddon guy. But we were curious if Kelan, we gave him the task of watching all three films in reverse order, if that would change, well, not necessarily change since there wasn't anything there to change, but if he would have stronger opinions about the ones he saw more recently than the 1974 version. We thought this was a great idea. If you're familiar enough with the show, you know usually we watch movies Kelan hasn't necessarily seen, and we like to berate him for it, so why not do it on an entire episode? So without further ado, Kelan, tell us about your experience watching the films in order. Tell us how you felt about each one, and then we will yell at you after.
Yeah, so like Jay said during the our Christmas gift opening episode, several of y'all mentioned Black Christmas, and of course I had to throw in my heaping helping of disappointment to the group, letting them know that I hadn't seen any of the Black Christmas films. Honestly, the first time that I heard the term Black Christmas, I was thinking that it was a Medea movie. So I did not realize that the original Black Christmas was from 1974.
Can we pause right there just for a second? If you stayed after, well, actually, after our Christmas Eve episode, I told a story off air. And because you just said it out loud makes me more comfortable saying it. But we went and saw, I want to say it was the last Star Wars movie in 2019. Does that sound about right? And when we were leaving, I pointed at the Black Christmas poster. I'm like, I want to see that. Mainly because Imogen Poots, I adore her. But someone, I'm not going to say
She
if
has
it
a
was
tragic
or was not
last
my
name.
wife. Yeah, that's true. I'm not going to say if it was or was not my wife, but someone said, is that the new Tyler Perry movie? And I will never let her live that down. I'm sorry, but proceed.
Well, I mean, I honestly, like, I didn't know there was a 1974 Black Christmas. The earliest I remember it popping into my head was probably the late 2010s. Probably, I guess, because of Black Christmas 2019, I probably overtly heard people talking about the original. So I had no experience, no prior history of knowing even what these movies were about. It wasn't until this podcast that I realized that the original was kind of an old, somewhat slasher film. I don't know that you would call it truly a slasher film, but kind of testing the waters in the 70s. It feels like, especially 74, feels like it was trying to draw from The Exorcist, especially with the phone calls and the way the talking was, and using some of the more vile language that he uses on the phone. So it feels like 74 was one of those movies that was kind of progressing the horror genre a little bit, trying to dip its toes in the water to see what boundaries it could push. And then 2006 comes along and kind of reinvents the original while keeping the same feeling alive. And then 2019 comes along and decided to just do whatever the hell they wanted to do. So as far as watching them in reverse, like Jay said, I watched 2019, 2006, and 1974 in a 24-hour period, and I watched them in that order. Started with 2019 with Imogen Poots, Carrie Elwes, who's always a treat, but we'll get back to him in just a second, Brittany O'Grady, and Lily Donahue. Then I watched 2006, starring Lacey Chabert, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Michelle Trachtenberg, and Andrea Martin. And if you remember Andrea Martin, or if you know who she is, she was in the first one as well, because 1974 starred Margot Kidder, John Saxon, Olivia Hussey, and Andrea Martin, who was also on the last season of Only Murders in the Building. Probably the most recognizable face from the original, other than Margot Kidder. So I'll just get right into it. 74, I enjoyed. I like that movie. I think in the group chat somebody said I probably thought it would be slow.
No. You're starting with 2019.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Reversal.
This is what this episode's all about. Reversal.
This is. I'm putting them in the order in which I like them.
So you're talking about the least favorite one first?
Well, if we were going to do that, then we'll talk about 2019, because that movie was straight hot garbage.
Okay. So just so we're clear, you're going to talk about them in the order that you preferred them. So you like 74 the best.
Yes, and
Okay,
I will
proceed.
say, so 74 I like because it's kind of like a horror movie baby. As far as, I mean, when we get to 74 with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then a little later on with Halloween, and then you get into the 80s and the true slasher flicks where they were really starting to push the boundaries on how much gore and blood they can throw into a film. This feels like this is where those kind of movies are really starting to get their footing. The casting is great. I will say in all three of them, the casting is phenomenal. That's one thing all three movies have in common. 74, it's good. It's not, I don't think it's a classic. I wouldn't consider it a classic horror film. I can see why it could be. But I mean, it's just a good movie. All three of these, none of them are great to me. But 74, it has that feel of that genre from those 70s style movies. It's acted really well. It's done really well. It may be the first instance of the lead female character being a complete idiot. So when the police officer's telling her, just walk outside because the calls are coming from in the house, and she's like, I'm gonna go deeper in the house. That became a staple of 90s horror films. 2006, my favorite is my favorite cast, just because Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Michelle Trachtenberg, and Lacey Chabert are all three of my teenage crushes. All three of them I loved, especially Michelle Trachtenberg as the cast girl in Pete and Pete, because I was about the same age. So,
and let's not forget Dean Malenko as Billy for you wrestling fans out there.
Yellow Billy. 2006, I feel like they did a decent job for a early 2000s movie trying to pay homage to early horror film. As far as they kind of kept the idea the same, and then they tried to do some 2006 stuff with having Billy have a sister, and then giving the whole backstory. The backstory is absolutely insane. That's the most insane part of any one of these three movies.
So out of all three of them, and we can all interject in this. This is just us talking about this movie, but 2006, I think, story-wise, was the best, because it did show us background. It did show us, the issues he had at home and why he became what he did, and like the whole incest thing. But I appreciate that the most about 2006, because I'm pretty sure it was like a 7 or a 9 on the tomato meter. People absolutely hated it when it came out, and I get it, because you're remaking a classic. But same thing is some of the other remakes we get, like Rob Zombie's Halloween gave us more background on why Michael Myers is the way he is, which is why I appreciate about the 2006 is because we're okay. Sure, Billy. Let's say Billy a president, but why the hell is Billy doing all this shit?
Yeah. But see, I think that takes away some of the magic of it. Yeah, I like that it was different in 2006, and so it makes it more of its own movie, that you show more of that, and then you get the kind of the double killer thing. For random reasons, you just decide to make him yellow.
Well, I think
permanent jaundice.
What you don't see and what you don't know is, to me, theater of the mind's always scarier. I mean, I can understand the argument. It is cool that they try something different, but I always like the idea of not knowing. Like, someone is crazy, but you just don't know why.
Well, see, I get that, and I appreciate that more. But to me, they already had a history with Billy. we don't know why they have a history of Billy. That's the thing. Like if Billy was just a random guy that showed up and started killing these guys or these ladies in 74, that gives a little bit more mystery, and I would let that go. But the fact that they save a present for Billy and all this other stuff, they know who Billy is, they're aware of this lore around him. It did make me want, okay, what happened? Why is this the way it is? So yeah. But
well, in
I
2006,
get all
Billy's not the killer. I mean, he kills people in his own area, but it's the sister who's the killer in 2006. So again, they took the original and then they twisted it, by adding the sister, adding the tragic backstory of his mother being the absolute worst. We'll get into how depraved the mother is, but like you said, incest, if that gives you an idea. So Billy being father's brother that was such a curveball, especially for that cast, because these are like at the peak of their careers. Or Mary Elizabeth Winstead's probably early on in hers, but I mean Lacey Chabert was an established actress, and so just throw that in.
And the fact that his name is Billy and what happened in that movie goes along with the terms hillbilly.
Yeah. I also just realized that basically Billy is with yellow skin and all is basically Bart Simpson from that Tree House of Horror episode where they lock up his crazy twin.
Oh,
but the crazy twin just was.
Yeah,
Bart
I was
Simpson.
thinking whenever I see that one, I always think of Sin City. Like that's where my mind goes.
I can see that.
Who was Elijah Wood? Was he the yellow one?
Yeah,
Elijah Wood
think so.
from Sin City.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was
No.
God, the guy who was in Terminator 3. I forget his name. Yeah, he was the yellow guy with like the big weird
John
face.
Connor from Terminator 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
I forget his name, but yeah.
And what 74 and 2006 both take on interesting topics, because 74 it talks about the abortion. The girl wants to have an abortion, which is very taboo for 74. Incest is always taboo. So I feel like 6 took 74 and tried to bring it to a new audience with while making it kind of its own movie. Then we get to 2019. And 2019 is at no point did I enjoy this movie. I enjoyed Imogen Poots. She's a treat. I wanted to enjoy Cary Elwes, but I don't know why he chose that accent. Why he didn't just go with his normal speaking voice. The accent he used in Stranger Things as the mayor was better, kind of a deeper version of his own. But he didn't sound menacing. If he's supposed to be the head of this organization that. Let's just get out of the way. This is a supernatural political movie that is disguised as a horror film. This is not a horror film.
Disguised as a remake. This disguised as a remake.
Right.
And if you take away the phone calls, Blumhouse should have made that its own film. And I've said that from the jump because, like I said earlier, I love Imogen Poots. I watch anything she's in. She's fabulous. So when this came out, I bought it and I watched it. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? Why not just make this as now? Tell me right now on the spot, if this was not called Black Christmas and it wasn't a remake, would you have liked it?
I didn't like it anyway.
So you didn't like. So if they took away the whole prospect,
and the reason I didn't like it is because it was so in your face with the politics.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a political
it
movie,
is heavy-handed with the Me Too stuff.
Yeah. It's be a political movie. If you're going to be a horror film, be a horror film. If you want to have political undertones like so many horror movies have, make it as the secondary. This was literally just punching you in the face with Me Too the entire time. Even when the big reveal happens, it's all about how the patriarchy is trying to keep women subservient, and it, like I said, it wasn't a horror movie at that point. It was you get in line or we're gonna kill you.
That seems to be storytelling now, though, a lot, because what happens now is like filmmakers. I don't know what maybe it's studios. Used to, filmmakers would have a story and they would hint with subtleties and themes and like all these allegories.
Subtext.
Right?
Yeah.
Now it's the opposite. It's like basically they're like, we have to push this agenda. So let's fit a story around it. And I think that's just the wrong order of making a good film.
They don't respect the intelligence of the audience anymore because they don't think this new generation is smart enough to get subtext. So you got to hammer it over the head now.
And I want
Right.
to say we're a group of 4 men, so this could come across as tone deaf, but watch 2019 and you will see what we're talking about. As far as, we're not against the message, it's just, if you're trying to be a horror film, be a horror film. If you're trying to be a political film, be a political film. The whole issue with the main character in this movie feels forced for the plot of the movie. The activist character that's, her friend, is so unlikable in her approach. She's so pushy and angry, and I get that the anger at the time for what was going on and all this stuff that was coming out with Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby and all that, I get the frustration.
It's
and the anger
very
that
much a movie
had.
of its time. It's hard to
Yeah.
watch it even a few years later out of that bubble, though.
But if you want to be that angry, she needed to have the reason to be that angry. If anybody should have been that angry and that forceful, it was Imogen Poots' character, who was being pushed aside for trying to bring to light that she had been raped by one of these sororities. She should have been the angriest one, and they made her weak.
They made her the PTSD
destroyed. Yeah, it completely
traumatized.
destroyed everything that they were trying to build as a political movie. So this is not. I think just because it has the name doesn't mean that it should be included in the Black history lore, because it's Black Christmas lore, because it's not that movie. The only, like Jay said, the only thing is the phone call and the sorority girls. That's the only thing they took from it. Everything else, it was like they were trying to cram together 5 different horror movies into one.
Which they had some interesting
others.
ideas there. I still want to know what the deal is with the cult and the bleeding the black stuff from the eyes. And apparently it replaces the blood of the people who are like under its spell.
Yeah,
it's like,
and I think Jay mentioned it. It had some good ideas. John may have said it too. It had some good ideas. Just the execution was horrible.
well, and it's like if you took, what it reminds me of is like if you took the kids in Little Rascals, the He-Man Woman Haters Club, and you just basically age them up to be 22 and totally fucking idiot and one-dimensional. That's what this movie is. It's one-dimensional, terrible writing all across. Like the only characters that are likable are like characters that are either weak or they're put in a position where they die or they're stupid. It's just like, people are not this dumb. We're not this dumb. You don't have to treat people like they're this dumb, but yeah.
And it definitely pushes. They push that the men in this movie are all evil except the one guy. Even the guy who's like, that you made our brother look terrible and he would never do that. And then 5 minutes later, he's trying to do that in the next scene after just saying he would never do that. Well, he might not, but you're definitely going to, because you're trying to. It was just, like I said, it was just, they shoved the politics so far down your throat, you didn't have time to digest the horror.
It almost felt like they were taking advantage of the situation of the Me Too movement too.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a money grab.
They're like, hey, I almost want to say, and I have nothing to back this up, but it almost felt like Blumhouse and Jason was like, hey, this is a good idea, but let's add this Me Too stuff to it. And again, in a standalone movie, that would have been fun. And like Kelan said, we don't want to, poop on any of that, because that's 100% a thing. It should be called out, but don't call yourself Black Christmas. There's not even anybody named Billy in the movie, is there?
No, you know what it feels like
so.
to me, honestly? It feels
Surely
like
one of those guys was a Billy.
the separate movie idea, and then they got the IP of Black Christmas, and then they tried to shoehorn it into being this thing without really trying too hard.
Like, I'm sure stuff like that has been done many times before, but this one felt that way. This one felt forced, and that was my biggest turn off about it.
And the premise is super interesting, especially if you dive more into the multiple sorority houses are all getting attacked at the same time, which they hint at with the other house and that girl. Is it happening to you? It could have been a good horror movie if it was its own thing, like you said. But to try to tie it into Black Christmas, then it feels like you said, it feels forced. It feels like they were trying to milk the Black Christmas name while also pushing a different narrative, and it just didn't land.
I would like to see a remake of Black Christmas 2019, a smash up with It Follows, and somehow like really lean into the sexual thing of like how that's connected somehow with the cult and something. I don't know.
Because you don't know what, I mean, they briefly talk about the black substance, but that's just so fucking random. Like, hey, by the way, this statue kind of bleeds like the Mother Mary, but it's black ooze, and it's going to completely change the way you see
And it's
things.
the founder of this historical college.
They should have
dead.
called it
Yeah.
Hawthorne. Call
It's
the
the-
movie Hawthorne and release it on any other date besides Christmas. Take away the Christmas aspect, and I don't hate the movie. I don't hate the movie anyways, if I'm being honest. But again, biased by the person over my shoulder.
She's great
but
in it.
She's great in everything.
Imogene Pooter.
Poots. I want
Yeah.
her and Florence Pugh to have a detective story together, like Pooh and Putes or Poots and Pugh. Like, I would love to see that.
I will say, watching all three of them in reverse was an interesting endeavor, just because watching 2019 set the stage for what the others should have been. If you're making remakes or reboots or whatever, you should be able to watch them in reverse and feel that you're watching the same movie just at different times in history. And that did not happen at all, except for 2006 and 2000 or in 1974. 2006 just feels like an expanded version of 74 with more violence and more character development on the antagonist side.
Lily.
But 2019, it does not feel like it follows. It does not feel like it follows the direction that those movies go as far as the premise and everything. It feels like they just, again, money grab to try to take the name and make their own film. I liken it to what I said about the last James Bond movie. If it was not a James Bond movie, it probably would have been a really good movie. But because it was labeled as a James Bond movie, it was terrible because it took everything that you expected and threw that out the window. Same thing with this. Even watching it in reverse, when I watched 2006, I was like, well, that's two different movies. And then when I watched 74, I was like, okay, 2006 did what 2019 should have done. Should have expanded. It should have either expanded the franchise in a different way with the same sentiment, or like you said, it should have been called something completely different and not tried to take the Black Christmas name.
Or just leave it alone. That's my argument. Just leave it alone. Stop remaking things. Stop trying to redo. Just make a different movie,
that's where we different. I think you're a purist, and I completely get that. And there are some movies that are sacred and shouldn't be remade. Black Christmas is a movie that should have got remade, and it should have got remade well, because it is such a solid story. But in the 70s, movies were so different, and we don't get as much as we would get in 2006. Like 2006 probably takes it a step too far. With the violence and the yellow skin and his, liver problem.
I think they tell too much of the backstory to where it takes away the mystique of the character.
And the sister looking like one of the Wayans brothers from White Chicks.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's other movies, like we were just talking about the Polar Express. Like, while that's not a horror movie, that deserves to be remade, because that animation is shit from when they made that originally, and take out the one kid that looks like me when I was that age with the glasses and the rocket ship started. And like, there's just the most annoying little shit in that entire fucking movie. But I think some movies deserve to be remade. I'm sure this one will be remade soon. You know who should do it? Eli Roth. Let Eli Roth handle it.
I'd be all right with that.
Yeah.
After Thanksgiving, he's on a roll.
He could cut himself a nice niche in the horror community doing holiday horror.
Yeah, and I'm here for it. I'm always okay with remakes, as long as it's not something. Don't remake Goonies. There's some things that are. Halloween was sacred, but I'm also a huge Rob Zombie fan, so I'm okay with what he did. I'm okay with remakes, but I'm also surprised that you went in the order I think we all agree on: 74, 06, 19. I think we're all in agreement there as far as what we prefer. I am a little shocked, and I'm proud of you, bud. Like, I'm proud of you. Like, you did this in 24 hours. Like, we weren't going to do this episode because it's fucking Christmas. So, but you did it. You knocked it out. We made time, and here we are.
And you didn't disappoint us.
I thought you were going to
you liked it in the correct order. Then there is only
I thought it was going to be 06, 74, 19.
That's what I thought.
The only reason I
That's
thought
what I
you would
figured.
like 19 is because of what we've already touched on. Is it's not fucking Black Christmas. It's something completely different that they decided to do.
Although
way to go,
I will
Jason
say, like Jay said, it's not terrible. It's just kind of an incomplete movie that's overly shoehorned into the Black Christmas. It's not a Black Christmas remake, and it's way too heavy-handed with the Me Too stuff.
Yeah.
And I almost would give 2006 the nod, but there's parts. 74 is a good, solid film. Obviously it's from 74, so there's things, if they did a true remake, that they could have improved on. But the fear in that one feels more sincere. 2006, some of the stuff is campy, hokey, it's goofy at times.
Well, it's just quality
the
filmmakers.
Killers, yeah.
Bob Clark is just way better of a filmmaker than that 2006. I mean, that's the end of this. Like, with all of these movies, like 2019, there's an idea there, but that gestation doesn't work because the writing's bad and the filmmaking's bad. It's like, that's always what these come down to. It has nothing to do with the time and age. It's just like, are you a great filmmaker or are you not?
And Bob Clark was. 9 years later, he made another Christmas classic, Not a Hard, the Christmas Story.
One year ago, close to 1 year ago, our Christmas episode last year was Better Watch Out. Kelan, Better Watch Out or Black Christmas 2019?
Better Watch Out, because Better Watch Out's a good movie. That kid is just so annoying. And you want him to get his. 2019, like I said, there's just nothing that draws you into any of the characters to like you sympathize with
besides
Imogene
Poots.
Yeah, you sympathize with Imogene Poots, but her friends are just ugh.
Oh, they're the worst. And it went very Mean Girls with the musical number.
Oh yeah,
that was odd to me.
And they didn't develop the villains in 2019 well at all.
Well, I digress because the Me Too movement developed those villains already in advance before this movie came out.
Yeah,
the villains in this movie are men and frat boys.
Yeah,
that's true.
We've been established for a while. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because if you in the 70s, it wouldn't have gone over because frat boys were the cool guys. I mean, Animal House and Revenge of the Nerds. Even though some of the ones in Revenge of the Nerds were kind of douchey, the frat guys were supposed to be the cool guys, and then there was definitely a shift.
But there's hardly any frat boys in the 1974, and the guy that you see the most, Keir Delay from 2001: The Space Odyssey, you can't really call him a frat boy. He's like a music college piano, master guy.
But that's the thing about the 74 movie, though, is she's pregnant. She wants an abortion. She meets with Keir Delay, and she's basically saying, like, this is what I want to do. And he lashes out on her. And that one conversation is like better than like both of the other movies, just because like there's a lot of layers there, and you don't have to be like thrown in your face like a 4-year-old. Like, this is what you want, you think. Like, and
they're in two different places in the relationship.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of on her way out, and he's wanting to double down on taking it all the way. I mean, imagine the emotional roller coaster you would go on if you go up to your girlfriend and you're like, hey, I think you're the one, and I want us to get married. And she's like, oh, I'm pregnant and I want an abortion, and I don't think we should be together anymore. Like that's a lot of heavy stuff, regardless of the time, but especially in the 70s.
To take in one conversation at Christmas.
Yeah.
And
I like the twist of 74 better than any of the others. The twist being where she basically beat her boyfriend to death, and they assumed that he was the killer. The only issue is, why would you leave her in the active crime scene? Like, go to sleep in this active crime scene, and good night. But I mean, that was probably the most original twist.
Well, it was also the first film to do the old urban legend idea of the calls coming from inside the house, because this come out 5 years before the first film. Really,
Stranger Calls.
Well, Stranger Calls with the lovely Carol Kane.
Mm-hmm.
I love
my Carol Kane.
Christmas
we just watched
film,
Scrooge last night.
Yeah,
I love Carol Kane so much. Pandemonium, like, she's fantastic in that. I am glad that Vito wasn't able to join us, because Kelan did exactly what we didn't expect him to do, and we wanted Vito here to be to rip him. But he followed suit, and man, Good job, bud. I said that already, but good job. I honestly thought it was going to be 2006. I would have put
I
money
did
on
too.
it.
I would have figured
I'd have
that.
lost money.
Yeah, and like I said, that one's got terrible reviews, but go back and watch it. It's not a terrible movie.
I
It's
feel
No,
like
that's not
people are
bad.
just now coming around to that one, and it's a shame that it don't really have a Blu-ray release in the U.S. It's got
doesn't.
like a region free.
even
somewhere.
even the one I have is from Blockbuster. That
I
I
saw
bought from
that. I almost
Blockbuster.
commented on that. You can
But
get the DVD though. I got the DVD for like $8 on
and it's
Amazon,
not
unrated version.
it's not bare bones, so we don't get to take a shot. But I'll take one
That's
anyways
true.
because it's been a day. But
It's almost.
Well, I
bare
think,
bones.
you
There's
know,
like
and
two things on it.
I think the thing about the 2019 one too is like it is a film of its time, but it's just also kind of insulting to the audience of its time. Because I think it's fair to say, I mean, I don't even need to say this, but like anybody who's a rational, decent human being, you're anti-rape, you're anti-hurting people. That's obvious. That's common sense. Like you don't need to make a movie to point out things that are stereotypical to the point of being stupid just to make a movie. Like
I'm very
can't get over
anti-rape, but I'm not very anti-people need to get hurt.
Right. Well, I mean, some people do need to get hurt. I don't know.
Read Kelan and I's text conversation sometime, and you will be appalled.
Right. That's true.
But so
Yeah,
we're
I get
all
what
in
John's
agreement,
saying,
and with
that's absolutely right.
we're all in
Anybody
agreement with
anybody
Kellen's
common
order.
sense and decent
things.
person would say no to that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I cussed out many of people. I mean, it's like way to be in the Christmas spirit. I'm like, that bitch cut me off first, or that asshole blocked the box where I couldn't get to my exit. So I was in the Christmas spirit. They were not. They were trying to bah humbug me, and they succeeded. But we're all in agreement with Kellen's order, right? I think we all appreciate 74 and like that one more.
That's my favorite
2006.
Christmas horror film ever. I watch it every year.
My thing with
It's great.
2019 too, excuse me, is if you take Imogen Poots out of it, I wouldn't like it as much because she's the reason that I was drawn to it anyways.
Well, she grounds the whole thing, you know.
Yeah,
without
she's the
that,
best
it
character.
falls apart.
And she's a great actress too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with her stuff, I have it pulled up. So Vivarium, which is an incredibly strange movie, but I enjoyed it. She's in 28 Weeks Later. She was in the Fright Night remake, which I think was fantastic.
I love that one, honestly.
It's so
It is
good.
good.
She was Green Room. Has anyone else seen Green Room?
Yeah,
I know it's on my
that's
list
great.
for Kellen to watch, but Green Room's one of my favorite movies.
That was an
ever.
early A24 film too.
Yeah, and it's Patrick Stewart as a neo-Nazi. Hello?
Oh, wow.
Watch the fucking movie.
No, it's great.
But she's been in a ton of stuff. I Kill Giants, which is a very small release movie that's very,
own
very
that.
good. Yeah, I
I've
own
heard
it
of
too.
that.
Walmart has the steelbook. Go buy it. It's fantastic.
That's a movie that if you're going to watch it, make sure you are in a really good mood because that'll bring you down real quick.
Super
fun.
dark. So
The one thing I will give to 2019, I will give one prop. They recreated the Exorcist 3 nurse kill. There's the scene where the girl's going in the door and it's a wide shot and she's walking out and one of the killers comes behind her and like strangles her.
Oh yeah.
I was like, that was kind of cool. I'll give them that. So
Yeah. They had
is a
all
jump
kinds of
scare.
weapons too. Like even in the picture above me, he's got a bow and arrow.
I like the
They
bow and
killed
arrow
many of them
thing.
away.
I like the weird mask with the black hooded cults. I kind of like the bleeding the oil type thing. I
Yeah,
wish I knew more
there were
about
great
that.
pieces to this puzzle, but the puzzle was put together incorrectly.
right.
That's what I think about 2019.
It's a great takeaway.
Tyler Perry, do better next time.
Damn it.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on Kellen's list there, guys?
What is Carrie? So I love Carrie Ellis. I love him in Princess Bride. I love him in Days of Thunder, Twister. What is it that he, as a British actor, seems like he has a fake British accent? Always. Is it not weird? It's like he's
exactly
not.
the
It's
like he's
not
trying to
speaking.
have the accent without having an accent while having an accent. He's like
it's
he's
weird.
like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. He's a dude playing a dude disguised as another
Robert
dude.
Downey Jr. is
Right.
going to be the new Kang the Conqueror in Marvel. Wait and see.
Canceled.
Oh me. All right. Well, Merry Christmas, guys.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Kellen, again, we're all proud of you collectively. Vito, who is here in spirit, is proud of you that he didn't get to yell at you. Unless I'm completely misplacing what I think Vito thinks. Like maybe Vito likes 06 more. I seriously doubt it.
Oh,
no.
no.
I don't
No,
think
he
so.
said his. I think he said his favorite Christmas horror was
And
74.
And 06 isn't even the best slasher film to come from the early 2000s. So
No, not even close. Not even close.
And if you
All right.
can't have a white Christmas, by God, have a black Christmas.
There you go.
Well, Merry Christmas from all of us here at the Sanctum. Thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you have enjoyed this year and a third that we've put in. We got some shows lined up already for the new year. We've got some guests coming in, so it should be a good time. One day, I promise, one day we're going to get back to that bucket I have over here that has a ton of our movie choices for when we first started, and we were just going to be a review show, but that pivoted awfully quick, which I'm thankful for, and I'm glad it did because we've made a lot of good relationships. We've had a lot of great interviews, and we've had a lot of good times with one another. So, in the year that was 2023, this is the shining light. 2023 can go fuck itself in a few days. We will have a New Year's episode. Vito will return. We talked about Terror Train with Jamie Lee Curtis and David Copperfield. So we hope to see you back then. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or to wherever you're listening to this podcast. We would greatly appreciate that. If you have Amazon Music, I have a playlist on there featuring artists and songs from the movies that we have watched and talked about so far. It's pretty solid soundtrack. I know a lot of people don't have Amazon Music. Maybe this year I'll try to expand that to other platforms. But as for now, Amazon or bust. So, and follow us on Instagram, of course. And if you're on Facebook, be a member of our congregation over at the Horror Sanctum podcast, where we share trailers and photos and all that fun stuff.
Also, if you don't have Amazon Music, Garth Brooks' entire catalog is now exclusively on Amazon Music, if that's of interest to you.
What about Chris Gaines?
I think that's all. It's all on there.
Sold.
And if you don't think that Garth Brooks mentions Warrant Horror, just Google "Where are the bodies, Garth?"
Oh no! Oh no!
That's a whole episode.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. We definitely have to have a video on for that one. All right. I'm Jay with John, Kelan, and TJ. And if you're going to watch Black Christmas this week, start with 74, 06, 19.
Make sure you're progressively drunker as you go.
Right. Unless you're just Imogene Poots fan, which you should be. All right. Signing off. Until next time.
Keep it spooky.